So, as I said, welcome to Dive In. These sessions are, if you remember, some of you know, really a forum dedicated to the practice of inquiry. So we're here to talk about the practice, to engage in the practice, get a little taste of the practice. And it's a sort of unusual forum where I don't know that anybody else is doing it, where we really kind of dive into the kind of nuts and bolts of the practice, right? We get into the nitty gritty of our inquiry practice. And it's a place where we have people who are completely new to inquiry, and we have people who have been inquiring for like 20 years. Right. So there really is a whole range of experience here. And that's part of what I hope makes it so rich. In each of these sessions, we kind of focus typically on a particular angle, right? Single out some little area that we can unpack in a little more detail and see what that means for your practice. So hopefully you learn something useful out of that. It is a public forum, right? So bear that in mind. Anybody can show up here. It's also recorded. So everything that happens in this main meeting room is recorded, and it's generally posted on the Dive-In website, on the YouTube channel, so you can go and review past meetings and past topics. It also means that the Q&C and the discussion at the end and any sort of processing, that's all recorded as well. So just bear that in mind. What happens in your breakout rooms, so there will come a point where you'll be put into a little breakout room if you want to with another person, and you'll do a little exercise, and that is completely confidential. So we don't record anything that happens in the breakout rooms, and you agree if you go into a breakout room to hold whatever happens in the breakout room confidentially. Right? So you don't share somebody else's process or inquiry in any way. So Susan is here as usual. Susan does all our program management. And so you've all no doubt probably been in touch with her, had emails from her. So thanks, Susan, for all your support. Yeah, I think that's most of what I need to say as we start. Generally, the format of the meeting is we're going to do a little guided practice now. Then I'll talk a bit say something about the topic that we're going to explore, the angle we're going to look at. We'll do a little exercise, and then we have some time for questions and sharing and comments and all of that. So that's the broad gist of it. So take a breath. Take a nice breath. You've set aside this time to find something out about this practice, which really means to get in touch with yourself. Inquiry is nothing but getting in touch with yourself, being curious about yourself, about your experience, wanting to know yourself. So we talk about an attitude of friendly interest. See if you can find some kind of friendly, curious, interested, open, don't know what you're going to find, right, as you turn towards yourself. And we'll begin with a short practice. So I'll invite you to let your eyes close. And you're going to turn to your inner world, to your direct inner experience. And how we'll do that, how we'll enter into that, is to begin with a sensing practice. To really get in touch with the immediacy of your sensations. So this is an area, a domain of your experience that's happening right here, right in the moment. And you can get in touch with it in a living, immediate way. So bring your attention down to your right foot and sense into the sensations, the actual immediate sensations of your right foot. You might feel the contact with the ground, your shoe, temperature. It's as if you're diving in and then running your hands on the inside, through your right foot to kind of sense whatever there is to be felt there. Maybe you feel the toes, each individual toe, the arch, the heel, the ankle. And then let your sensing rise up your right lower leg. So sensing from your ankle into your calf and your shin. So there's no right or wrong. You're just getting in touch with whatever is there to get in touch with and noticing it. Like, oh, what's here? What am I finding? How am I experiencing, sensing my right lower leg in this moment? Sensing into your right knee. If you don't assume you know what that is, like, what does it feel like now? What are the sensations you can be in touch with in your right knee in this moment? And sensing up your right upper leg, your right thigh, inner thigh, outer thigh, top and bottom of the upper leg, the length of your thigh, and into your right hip. What's it like to be in touch with your right hip, your right buttock on the chair? You might notice the weight. You might feel aches or pains or tightness or tension. Maybe it feels fleshy or muscular or brittle. All different kinds of experiences you might notice as you sense into your right pelvis, right buttock, right hip. And whatever it is exactly right. It's just what it is right now. Just like contemplating that coral reef, just seeing, oh, what's there? What do I see floating in front of me? Well, here you're sensing, what do I sense in my right leg? And then coming to your right fingertips, your right fingers, knuckles, palm of the right hand. What are your fingers touching? What can you sense? What sort of shape does your hand feel like it has? It might feel pleasurable, it might feel painful, it might feel neutral. Sensing up your right wrist. Now, you don't have to keep it dead still. If you want to bring a little movement in, do that. Help you connect with it. And then sensing up your right forearm. Forearm, all the way up to the right elbow. Really being in touch. Right? Letting yourself take the time to get in touch. If you're new to this, it might be quite unusual to take this kind of time, really sensing into your body, into your arms and legs. And sense your right upper arm. What does that feel like? So you're really paying attention to the immediacy of your experience. You're not thinking about it or trying to make it be one way or the other. There's nothing you should or shouldn't find. You're just sensing, getting in touch with your upper arm. And into your right shoulder. The front, side, back of the shoulder, under the arm, and the shoulder girdle. How does your shoulder feel? Does it feel tight and achy? Does it feel rich and fleshy? or insubstantial and almost not there. It could be any of those things or something else. And then let your attention come across to your left shoulder, sensing into your left shoulder. Oh, don't forget to breathe. Have a breath as you sense. Taking this time to connect your left shoulder, your left upper arm. It might feel quite different than the right. Coming to your left elbow. Might almost feel as if you're sensing some kind of medium of your consciousness filling in your arm. Like the very cells and the molecules of your arm are waking up as consciousness of whatever experience is occurring. Like turning on the lights, becoming aware, but in an immediate felt way. Sensing down your left arm, left forearm. Coming to your left wrist. Letting your awareness fill your left wrist, fill your left hand. Awareness, and maybe you sense the presence, some kind of presence filling up your left hand. Maybe flowing beyond your hand. And then let your attention come to your left hip. Sensing into the left hip. Sometimes the sensations of our body are really obvious and strong. Like you feel the muscles or the skin or the shape of the leg. And sometimes it can be very almost insubstantial, almost like there's nothing there. If the tensions and our patterns are loosening up, sometimes you can almost not feel it. Sensing your left buttock, and then moving down into your left upper leg, left thigh. Maybe you can feel the sinews of the muscle or the bone, the skin, the air temperature, or your clothing. And then sensing down your knee, your lower leg, lower left leg. Again, have a little movement if you like. Shift the weight in the leg a bit. Feel your left ankle and your left foot coming into contact with the ground. The heel and arch and ball and toes of your left foot. Filling up with your awareness, with your consciousness, your presence. And then sense both arms and both legs. So you're really sensing your arms and legs. Sometimes describe this as putting on your wetsuit. Sensing your arms and legs are like your wetsuit to go diving, to go exploring in your inner world. And now that you're sensing, really activating this internal sensing capacity, begin to add listening, conscious listening. So you're activating your hearing, your listening sense, sound sense. And sound is interesting because there's kind of outer sounds, sounds in your environment, or maybe inner sounds too, like the voice, inner dialogue, thoughts. So you're listening, sensing and listening. See how that is. What's that like? And then when you're ready to, you can let your eyes gently open and begin looking. So now you're sensing, looking, listening, and looking. Adding your visual sense, taking in your environment, colors, shapes, light, objects, people. I learned two fancy words listening to a podcast: interoception and exteroception. With our sensing, looking, and listening, we're activating both. Our interoception, which is our internal sensate perception, and our exteroception, looking out, external perception. Two different parts of the brain, apparently. So sensing, looking, and listening is kind of bringing these together. It's part of what it does. And so now I'll walk us a little bit into the beginning of an inquiry. And you can have your eyes open or closed for this part, whichever you like. So just begin to notice, how are you feeling right now? And what kind of feelings are here? So we're just checking in. Yeah, so sometimes call it checking in. Where am I? What's here? You're diving into your inner ocean, your inner world, and you're beginning to find out what's actually present. One layer of that is to notice, how are you feeling? Whatever it is, whatever kind of feeling is here. Emotional feeling, no feeling, happy, sad, peaceful, content, angry, bored, frustrated. Right? You have all these feelings. So you're just seeing what's here. It's being open and curious. You might notice what are you sensing more broadly in your body? And you've sensed your arms and legs. What about the rest? Like, how's your head and your chest, your belly, your pelvis? What kind of sensations are there? You can see, oh, what am I sensing? Well, my head is tight, my breathing's feeling actually a little shortened. My belly, oh, a little bit of butterflies there. That's kind of interesting. Pelvis. Oh, I'm not even sure I can sense my pelvis. Is it there? So whatever you sense is fine. You just want to be open to it, to notice. And then another question, like a broader question, like just what's up for you? If you were sitting with your best buddy and they said, hey, what's going on? What's up for you? What's happening? What are the things that are sort of important for you or drawing you right now? It might be something in your life, relationship, or a conversation you had with a friend, or something happening at work, or some project, or this issue you have, maybe some issue you've got going on, right? may just be the thing that's happening right there in your inner world. You're like, oh, I don't know, I got this feeling. Like, I don't know what that, I'm feeling so happy right now, and I have no idea why that is, but that feels really interesting to me. That's what's up. Yeah. So again, you're just letting your own curiosity find what's important for you, what's drawing you, what do you want to look at as you check in to see what's happening for you. And if you were continuing to inquire, you would then begin to sort of talk a bit more about that. Say, from the immediacy of your experience, like what can you say about it? Well, this was this. If it's a situation, you would like talk a bit more about the situation, like what's going on there, what's relevant. If it's a feeling, you might talk more about the feeling that's showing up, like well, what's it like? How am I feeling it? So we'll pause the guided practice there, right? And we'll take it that far, and then I'm going to continue talking. And just notice how that's affected you. To take even just a short time to get more in touch with your sensations, right? And to just, for a minute or two, just contemplate, where am I? What's up for me? And begin to recognize something about that. So our discovery of the process and practice of inquiry and our discovery of our inner world is really a journey. The practice is a very deep and kind of multi-layered practice, which really at the end of the day is just exploring ourselves. So we're just exploring our experience to try to understand, to try and see where we are, to try and recognize it, and then to be curious about it, to actually understand it. Yeah. And in the book, as I set it out, we can see this as an unfolding of different kinds of contemplating questions, different curiosities. And, it's not, as I've said many times, that you do A and then B and then C and then D. But, there is a certain kind of organic logic that will tend to show up in a certain way. Like, first of all, you find out where you are, right? If you go diving into the ocean, that's the first thing you find. Like, well, where am I? What's here? What's going on? Right? That's kind of just naturally where you start. And then when you see where you are, something draws your attention, you go, well, what is that? Right? Let me find out more about that. What is this thing that's happening for me? What is that fish that's lurking down there? I can see something about it. I don't know everything about it. I want to go and find out more. So you might begin to engage a kind of a discovery of the what. Like, what is it? What am I feeling? Let me say more about it. Like, is the feeling, the sensations, what are the ideas I have about it? Yeah. Oftentimes we may find that the experience has some connection or seems to have some connection with a life circumstance, right? It's linked with something going on in your life. Like I had this thing with my friend and they said this, and now I'm like really upset about it. And I lost my job and I feel really depressed about it, or some difficulty, or I got a new job and I'm so excited about it. I feel really thrilled. Right? So oftentimes there are things that are occurring in our lives that are then engendering or related to things that are arising in our inner experience. Of course, not always, right? Sometimes it's just the inner discovery itself is what's going on, right? That can also be happening. But oftentimes we will find some connection between our inner life and between our outer life and what's going on within us. right? If you never found that, if you never see some relationship between what's going on in your life, your outer life, and what's going on in your inner life, you should get curious about that because, that would be unusual. Like I say, not all things. Sometimes it's just an issue that we're working on itself, like struggling with an internal issue. But the thing I want to address today really has to do with bringing things back out into our outer life. Right? So in a sense, we may start from our outer life. And in how we've been talking about it so far, mostly, it's been a journey and a dive in. Right? I realized we even call it diving in, dive in, right? It's the focus on the in. And the in is very important for a long time. The in is, really the main thing. So we start with those life circumstances. We begin to discover, oh, well, I have all these feelings and all these thoughts and all these sensations and impulses and reactions inside me, right, that are actually involved. And then we begin to find out what they are. And as we find out more of what they are, in time we begin to look and we might begin to wonder, like, well, how come? How come that's happening? How come I'm having that response? That's what's going on around me. How come that makes me so sad? What does that touch in me that kind of brings about, that has that feeling of sadness? So we begin to look inwards for the causes, to understand the causes and the meanings of our experience. So we ask the what and then the why, and the why begins to take us deeper, right? As many of you know. And often that may begin to connect us with all sorts of places within ourselves. We begin to discover young places, right? Oh, your influence of your history. You realize, oh, I felt so sad when that happened, and I stay with the experience and I feel into it. And oh, wow, I get in touch with this very young part of myself. Feels like a little 5-year-old, right? Well, I mean, even just that discovery, right? That you dive in and you discover there are young parts of you in there, right? Things within your soul, within your psyche that feel young. That's a whole huge discovery, right, for many people. And that it's not just in a theoretical way, but in the immediacy of your experience, you're actually feeling it. You're directly right there in touch with it. So our inquiry takes us in, and as we wonder, well, what's this sort of like feeling so bad? And it's like, oh, we discover feels like there's no love, right? Oh, there's no love, felt so unloved. Right? So we begin to discover like things that are missing, difficult feelings. And as we discover these things, we may begin to notice the next part of the dynamic, which is that it has an effect on us. Right? Like when you really get in touch and you see some young part of you, get in touch with this young part of you, felt so unloved, and you really see it and see what was going on with them and how they felt. Oftentimes what arises within you, if you give yourself a moment, you go, well, how do I feel about this? How is it for me to see this? As I'm practicing here with myself, oh, I just feel so much tenderness. I feel so sorry for that little part, for example, for that little me. So some kindness might arise or some love might arise. Exactly what, in fact, that little young being needed can begin to arise in your presence. So this is what I call the magic of inquiry, right? And that's the next part of the dynamic. The where am I? What is it? How come? Why is it here? And then how does it affect me? Like, how do I respond to it? And this seems to make space for all kinds of things to arise within us as we're exploring our experience and in response to it, that then has a magical effect on the experience itself. Like the little young one might relax, kind of suddenly melt away, right? In a way you never thought could happen, from just seeing them so clearly and allowing this natural response. So all of this is kind of explored in the book, and many of you I know have gone into it in courses and in your own practice and all of that. And if you're new, this kind of gives you a sense of how that practice can go. And all of these moves, in a sense, are moves in, we could say. They're part of the dive in. Diving deeper, being affected by what we're finding. If you keep contemplating that last part, like being affected by what you're finding and sort of wondering about the significance of it, you may begin to notice another angle that we actually haven't written about in that book. It may make an appearance in the next one. So you may begin to wonder, okay, so what are the implications of that? Right? Or how does that change things? So part of the, okay, how do I feel about it? How do I respond to it? Right? And then, so how does that change things? Right? What does this mean? And an easy way you can see that is if you started off, for example, you started off, say, with an external situation. Your colleague said something to you and you were really hurt by it, right? And you went home and you're like, yeah, that's it. I'm going to quit my job. Right now, what feels like the right thing to do is I've just got to get out of there, right? I want to get away from that person, or I'm going to go and report them or lay a complaint, or, so you're all wound up and you've got all kinds of things that you feel like that's what you need to do, right? And you go through this process. You inquire and you get in touch with the reaction and you see, oh, actually, it connects me to some really young part. You work it through, and all the young part opens up and relaxes, and you start to feel, oh, you realize I was all about value, and I was feeling so unvalued by that person. But right now, I kind of feel my value within myself, right? There's that discovery of value right here. And I'm sensing my value and I'm feeling it. And the child is kind of gone and is not here. And I'm sensing this value in such a way that it's just part of me. It doesn't feel like a product of what anybody else says to me or doesn't say to me. And then the interesting question is to say, okay, so how does that first situation seem to me now? Right? If I close the loop and I go back to where I started, how does that seem from here, from where my inquiry has brought me? Right? Have you ever done that? Did you ever take that step? Bring that particular move into your inquiry, like, oh, I'm feeling full of value right now, or I'm feeling full of joy, or I'm feeling whatever it is that you're feeling. And you go, okay, so that situation, what do I feel? How do I feel about it? How do I feel about it now? How does it seem to me now? And what do I feel like I need to do now? And oftentimes you will find that it's maybe very different from what it seemed at the beginning. Right? That what feels like appropriate action or necessary action is very different, than when you were at the beginning, kind of coming from, say, some kind of reaction. Right? So this is really interesting, right? This is really where the fruits of the practice start emerging into our lives, right? Where there is the possibility of allowing our inquiry to actually touch and transform the specific sort of our relationship to the specific external circumstances of our lives. Yeah. Maybe you started off like with this car and this new car. You're like, I just want this car. I can't stop dreaming about this car. Every part of me, like that's all I can think about is getting this new car or this new outfit or this new whatever it is, right? Something, your whole being is burning because you want this thing so much. Right? And you do a whole inquiry into that and you find out about it. Like, what is it about it that you want so much and it seems so beautiful? And you think about being in the car and you just feel this immense sense of like speed and power. And that, like, that's really what you want. And you realize experientially, you feel like you're in it. And there's just this immensity of power. And well, actually, you realize as I'm sitting right here, I kind of actually feel that power. I feel that power in my body. And you're like, oh, I mean, the car is nice. I still wouldn't mind it. But do I feel like I have to have it? Not so much right now. Maybe there's something else I can spend the money on because I've got this sense of immensity and power simply within my being right now. Right? So these are the kinds of things that can happen, the kinds of shifts. It doesn't mean you don't get a car, you might. It means that what the car was representing to you is available to you anyway. And then you can, you can still get it if you want, but you're not having to get it. So when I say returning to the surface, this is what I'm talking about, right? The way in which we circle back. We go from that dive in, we explore all the way in to the qualities of presence themselves. That's ultimately where we begin to understand things, right? And that brings about a real transformation. And, it's worth saying that sometimes that can take a long time, right? That's not necessarily a quick process. Sometimes you dive in and you just get as far as recognizing, oh my God, that's my superego that's jumping on me and telling me I shouldn't want a car, right? Or I can't have that kind of car. And you do some work and you get some expansion, you realize, that's just my mother in my ear again, telling me I can't have what I want. Get rid of that. And maybe at that point, the implication is simply, yeah, okay. At least I know I can want it. It's really okay to want it. And if I can get it, I could. And that's a first step. Right? So I'm wanting to just highlight this, to bring this to your attention, that there is this kind of step that you can bring into your inquiry at the end, right? Or at certain junctures. Indeed, at many points, you can stop and you can say, okay, well, I've just seen this. Oh, what are the implications of that? I've just begun to recognize that there's a child in me a lot of the time. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means I kind of need to look out for that, right? I need to be more aware and find out when I'm being run by that child, right? That might be something you begin to recognize, get really interested in and want to know about. So our discoveries can have many implications. And really, all I'm wanting to do tonight is just open up the possibility for you that at a certain point in your practice, that might be an interesting thing to bring in, right? If it started from a particular circumstance, you can circle back to it and see, what is how does that seem to me now? What do I feel like I need to do now? How do I respond to it now? How do I feel about it now? Okay. So let's do a little exercise. It's a slightly tricky thing to do an exercise for because, it kind of you have to have gone a certain way into your process to really then go back, and begin to return to the surface and ask, what does it mean? So in this exercise, what I'd like you to do, you'll be in groups of two if you're going to do the exercise. You'll be in groups of two, and each person, right, the first person goes first, and they have 5 minutes, right? We do short exercises. So 5 minutes, you just look into, like, check in, see where you are, and look into your like what's up for your current thread, something that you've been looking into. So if you're completely new to inquiry, just dive into your experience, and like we kind of did at the beginning, just find out where you are. What are you feeling? What's on your mind? What are you sensing in your body? What life circumstances are up for you? And take 5 minutes to just hang out with that and explore it. If you've been inquiring for a while, you might see what are some of the, what's something you've been looking into, right? Talk about it, bring it to life a little bit, and see where you are with it now. And then see if that question comes up, like what are the, like how has that changed? How has that shifted? And as you've been exploring this issue, see if you can notice how has it changed, or what are the, how do you feel differently about it compared to how you did, right? Is that clear? So if you've been inquiring into something, you can see, how did it seem at the beginning, and how does it seem after some time, right? How do you, what's changed in terms of how you feel about things and what that means kind of even practically. So 5 minutes, and then take a further 2 minutes. Let me see. Let's just do it like that, actually, just the 5 minutes each, right? So if you're really fresh to this, just dive in and explore where you're at. And if you've been inquiring for a while, look into this question of circling back, to see, how things have changed as you've inquired, and how that changes your view and your experience of, say, the external circumstances. See if you can see something about that. Okay, so we'll just do 5 plus 5, and then we'll come back here for some discussion. All right. We'll take a total of 15 minutes. So you've got an extra 5 minutes to just go into your breakout rooms and say hello to the person. If you have a more experienced person and a less experienced person together, that's fine. That's likely to happen. Let the more experienced person go first, I would suggest. It's just if there's someone really new. Okay, so 15 minutes, and we'll be back here at about past. All right. So explore that new question and see what it reveals for you.
Okay. So Dom, why don't you take a look at what I put in chat and see if I got that right? And while you're doing that, if anybody is not doing the exercise, would you please drop off now?
Chat, is it?
So that I don't want anyone to be by themselves. So if you don't mind dropping off now.
Yeah, if you're not going to do the exercise, then you can drop off and come back in 15 minutes.
I'm shuffling people around at the moment just to make sure everyone's got a partner. Okay, we're gonna have one group of 3. Dom, is that gonna work?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, sorry, let me do one last look. Okay, good. One group of 3, it'll be pretty quick. All right, you ready? Oh wait, I'm sorry, let me change the time. So 15 minutes total, right? Yes. Okay, here we go.
So 5 minutes each. And remember, the other person is just a silent witness, right? And we'll have our discussion back here. So do come back for a discussion. Okay, see you now. Okay, we're all back. So, welcome back into the diving boat. And we have some time for discussion, for questions, comments, sharing. Really like to hear, like, how was that for you? How was it to, like, even if you just want to say a short comment or share something or ask a question, maybe inquire a little further, it's all possible. How was it to, did you see something useful about that? Did also, if you thought it wasn't very useful, that's good to hear as well. I'd just like to know what your experience was. So if you do, raise your electronic hand. Yeah, Susan just put in the chat. So go to the participants button at the bottom and just raise your hand. Okay, Yvonne, go ahead and mute yourself.
Hi, Dom.
Hi.
It's through a friend that I ended up coming on here last time with Gail and yourself.
Oh, welcome.
And it's lovely to have it. And thank you for doing this, for generously offering this to us. I found it very helpful. The lady I was with, it was like the two of us were in the same process of moving into a retirement and letting go of clutter, just being gentler, gentler with myself. That's what I notice.
Yes.
And the wisdom of what she was saying, that actually the doing of it is not as hard as the anticipation and and what it's about, the fear that's underneath it of not having enough. But for me, the freeing up and simplifying of my life is my motivator now, but in a gentle way.
Yes, yes. Wonderful. And so as you kind of read, like as you explored that a little, like how does that sort of, how did that seem to change?
But just as I was relating to it, because it's an issue that's been going on for a while, is that I'm in a softer place. I've just been with Hamid on the retreat, in Eindhoven, and
yes.
it was about death, dying, and beyond. And I just felt like someone gave me an injection of, come on, get your act get things sorted, because it's going to free you up, and really find out what it is you want to do between now and dying. It's a topic I couldn't have done on my own, but I found it really, really good. Very practical, very balanced.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. So it kind of made you gentler in this process.
There's just a gentleness. The ego, the superego and the judge is not as strong as it would normally be,
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
That sounds helpful. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, nice to see some people from Eindhoven here. I was also there, as was Julian. Julian, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Dom. I guess what I noticed a real lifelong habit for me, this wanting thing. Well, I want this, I want that. And there's a sort of a sense of, right, well, I shouldn't want it. And then what's the feeling of it? And it almost keeps drifting me into this kind of nihilistic state of, well, I should be a monk then. It doesn't quite, I know I'm not going to be a monk, but it almost drifts into some kind of slightly depressed nihilistic state.
So what happens when you recognize that, Julian?
Oh,
you see that actually doing that, going, okay, well, it means I shouldn't want anything, or I'm not going to want anything, puts you into that kind of nihilistic state.
Yeah. Well, I had during the session, I've had this really sharp stabbing pain in my back, just barely. I'd lost touch with it, but I can feel it. It's not quite as stabbing. And during the inquiry, I just said, actually, surprising, I said, it's like I stabbed myself in the back.
Interesting. Where do you get that idea from? That you shouldn't want anything, or you shouldn't? Where does that come from?
Well, it's sort of when you hang out with Buddhist monks, or it's, okay, it's a good question. I couldn't really say where it came from.
It's a very interesting thing to notice, though. I mean, in a way, the example that I gave, I could see how, you could take it that way, that you recognize, oh, well, it's about my it's about the car, it's about the power. When I have the power, then I don't need the car. But actually, I didn't say, if you look closely, that it doesn't mean you shouldn't get the car.
Oh no, you're quite the opposite, and it's not just what you said. I mean, this has been going on for many, many years. I just recognised it. It's a real tension in me.
That's great.
Well, why do I want this anyway? Well, and it's not. I mean, my life's full of material stuff. I mean, I collapse into so it explodes out. But there is this constant. Why are you doing this? It's almost like I'm in this constant existential crisis of.
Yes.
Apart from doing Ridwan, really, it's almost the only thing. I don't get into some big bloody.
So what makes that special? How come that's okay, but everything else becomes a knot about whether you can want it or not, or do it or not?
It's just really an act of faith. It's just when I first came into contact with it. I mean, you were the first person I spoke to about it. I remember it was just an immediate like, oh, blimey, how's this working? What is this? There's something magical here. I can't see what it is, but I can sense something.
So I think it's very good to see that stance, kind of the outcome of it is some kind of nihilistic sort of state. So there's something to really continue exploring there, because it seems like there's some part of you that feels like when you say, well, why do you want that? It sounds like there's almost some part of you that's kind of going, you need to disavow kind of all kinds of wanting. Right. And that will be a good thing to find out about. Where is that coming from in you? What's making that happen?
Do you want me to answer that now?
No. I think that's a big further inquiry. And in a way, it's something I've been reflecting on because I've been coming across it in various forms. And it might almost be a topic of another session here. Whereas there's something about, I mean, there are a couple of people here at Eindhoven, and if you think about that whole thing of the fulfilled life, right? Hamid was saying, like, there are things that your soul wants to do, and that part of us that kind of disavows all of that by going, oh well, it's just a spiritual state, and I'm going to go get the state, and then not worry about the thing. But there's something about that doesn't quite do it, and in a way, there's a certain kind of I think that's almost a certain kind of spiritual bypass, right? Oh, I'm just going to get the state, and then I'm not going to have to, deal with the thing or the action. Not always, but that's something to contemplate, to kind of look into and be curious about. Yeah, you get what I'm pointing to?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know we're ending now, but it's not the great example, but how do I know it's not my spiritual self that wants to buy the car? How can I discern which is which?
What's actually true for you?
Yeah.
What is the truth? Now remember, it's what we're all about here. It's all about the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good inquiry. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. Ina.
Interesting. All these Eindhoven people. I was there too in the streaming.
Right.
I couldn't quite face 400 people in one room and then me, one of them. But streaming was okay. And the funny thing is that I thought, oh, now I have 5 minutes to my thought or my feeling to myself, and I had this plan to inquire within myself about, especially the beyond part was a bit, but I don't expect you to comment on that, because I go to heaven, that needs more inquiries with a private teacher. The beyond part was what I was so happy with the whole retreat until the beyond, the last 3 weeks. I thought, oh my God, it's not my world. But the thing is, that, do you want to say something about that? Or
No, go ahead.
no, it's better not, I think, because
Uh-huh.
he did say it's a bit tricky
Uh-huh.
after hesitation. Anyway, but the thing is that I'm a bit slow in my feeling, being aware of what's up now, because that is where am I now? What's up for me now? And what was up for me when we started inquiring was, I'm with Thea. I have had a few emails, and we were going to inquire together, Thea, and we are in the online group as well, but we haven't got around to inquiring because of my daily life, etc. But Thea, I will one of these days. And I was with Thea in this one. I thought, oh, how wonderful. It's a universe putting us together. I don't take any steps, and still here we are, happy.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just saying how happy we were. Then I was thrown out.
Yes.
Nothing to do against you, Julia, or I forget your name now, Lauren, of course, nothing.
Yes.
And that was actually what was up then. And that happens very, very often. I don't want to feel it. I don't react.
Oh.
And I inquire or talk about the previous, either an intention or a feeling. So I need so much time to really what's happening now.
So this time you took the moment to actually catch that, oh, this is what's here right now.
This disappointment of being thrown, yes, and that came up when Lauren and I realized before the 15 minutes were over, that's what was up for me. I mean, Lauren can take it, of course. If you're here, anybody can take things like not in daily life. Maybe they might be hurt, but that's not the thing, of course. It was about me.
So that's great, right? Great that you had that kind of opportunity to catch something that happened right in the moment that it happened, and to be able to give it some space and explore.
Not being aware of it when it was actually there, it moved so quickly, and I took the subject I had in mind anyway. But I didn't inquire about this, you see. I inquired about this, but the immediate sensation was, oh, what a shame. The universe put us together.
Yes, it put you together and then it moved you apart.
Yes, exactly. So there must be a reason. You always get what you need. I don't know what teachers or how. You always get what you need. You might not like it, but you always get. But that's saying, I have all these sayings.
Yes, and it sounds like the sayings kind of talk you out of allowing the feeling, right? Allowing, say, the disappointment, or allowing the, right.
That's a good observation, yes, because okay, there must be something good in what and then I ignore my feeling of disappointment.
Yeah, very
and
good.
I do that very often.
Yes. So along our themes of today, as you recognize that, Ina, recognize that pattern, how does that change how you feel about catching these uncomfortable and allowing these uncomfortable feelings?
There is a wish I would be quicker to catch them and not let the opportunity go at the moment. So maybe and then, as you say, you always get what you need. So there must be some good in it after all. But I ignore the pain. I mean, pain. You know what I mean. It's not not a knife in my chest.
But But still, it's interesting to notice as well something very significant about the fact that at this point to you, it feels more important to make space for what's true, even if it's uncomfortable, than to explain it away and make it sort of feel less important or
Now, you,
find a positive spin on it, right?
well, that's why I raised my hand to sort of look into it
Yeah.
and maybe
Hmm.
myself catch it.
Yes.
Catch
How
it.
does your heart feel now?
I feel some. Now that you mention it,
Mhm.
so I thought I felt a dark spot, but it's not true. I feel joy. Joy. Don't know what. Maybe because I brought it up. Maybe because you.
Take a moment and see as you feel the joy.
I want to explain, analyze. That's another thing. I always want. Is
Okay.
it because you
So-
look at me? Because
So just feel the joy and see if you can tell what it's the joy of.
the joy. Feel the joy,
Oh, you feel joy.
and there is a wish to explain it, to analyze it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I sort of put that away,
You can put it away, or you can bring that wish into feeling the joy more, right? Discover it. So you want to know it, right? You want to explain it. So you want to understand it. But follow that invitation into feeling it more and see what it reveals.
what it reveals. See, again, there I want to find out what it reveals. I feel it, it's expanding a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but what it reveals. See, these are difficult questions for me.
Ah, so maybe you just need to hang with it a bit.
Yeah,
Just hang out with
I
this joy
think
and
actually
see what you discover.
I'm getting more, I need much more time for everything. So, yeah, that's a good idea. Hang out with it.
It's a good discovery too. You need more time. Go do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Ina. Yeah, Michael, go ahead.
Hi, Dom. Yeah, I had actually two questions about inquiry. And so having done the practice for a bit, and I guess, and I checked your book and to see if it was explained, and it's not. So maybe this is something for the one that's coming. But what I've noticed is that there's something about speaking, the process of, and then hearing myself speak the words, which brings very often a clarity.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
I don't know if you've contemplated this or
Yeah.
thought about it, or
What do you see about it?
I mean,
You notice that the speaking, the articulation brings a kind of clarity.
yeah, it's definitely different than just sitting here and thinking about stuff on my own.
Oh, right.
Something about having
Okay, I see. So not just so you're pointing to the actual specific mechanism of talking out loud, as opposed to, because there are two things involved in talking, right? One is just, well, various things. One is recognizing the experience. Another is articulating and verbalizing the experience. And another is actually saying it out loud, right? So those are like three different things. So you can just meditate and be aware of things where you do none of those things really, right? You might do a bit of recognizing, or you can inquire where you could do all of those things. And you're pointing to the difference between just thinking it and actually. So I think I have said something about that. And I think any external medium of expression, so whether you are speaking it and hearing it, or whether you are writing it and seeing it, compared to just purely thinking it, brings, as far as I can tell, an extra level, exactly as you say, of kind of definiteness and clarity. And I think there is something about both the speaking and hearing, or the writing and seeing, right? That kind of perceptual reinforcement that actually really does add something to the inquiry. I think this is really true. And I don't know that we know exactly the neuroscience of it, but there's obviously some neuroscience behind it. But that's what I would guess is involved. So that kind of mechanism, I generally say to people, like, you can inquire on the fly, you can inquire walking down the street, you can, and that's valid. And even if you're really skilled at that, there is something extra that comes from the verbalizing or the writing. So yeah, I think you're onto something there.
Great. And then just the second question, just very quickly, can you say something about developing this inner touch, this like refining some sort of calibration with truth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, developing your inner touch. You really, I mean, the sensing practice is a good way to do that. But any time in your inquiry, right? As you're inquiring, as you're exploring, I mean, how often does your teacher say to you, okay, so what are you sensing, right? What are you sensing in your body? How do you sense it in, and to really take the time with that, to go like, okay, well, what do I sense? Okay, there's some kind of tightness in my head, or some kind of, people say like, oh, there's something in my heart. Okay, that's a start, something. Right? Hang out with the something. Take your time with it. See what else can you say about it. Right? It feels like pressure. Okay, it feels like pressure. So sense into the pressure. Well, it feels kind of actually something solid. Okay, it feels solid. Well, what kind of solid? Right? And as you hang out with it, you may be able to differentiate and discriminate more and more. So in the last chapter in the book on the belly center, I kind of go into this in a fair bit of detail, like actually developing that inner touch capacity, right? Both in terms of the ordinary sensations of the body, the actual contractions and tensions and all of that, and in terms of the subtle sensing of the qualities themselves. So that's also some place you could go and look. The last three chapters all cover different angles of this, like relating to feelings, or relating to thoughts, or relating to sensations.
Great.
Yeah.
I've got it right here, so I'll have a look. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the question. And then Meryl.
Yes. When I did my inquiry, I got in touch with my inner lost teenager, and my inner lost teenager was very, very, very lonely, but she found expression by playing the piano and by doing art. But unfortunately, in the family I was in, I was put on a pedestal, which removed me from all my cousins and all my peers. And I feel such desperation about this.
Yes, right. Kind of desperation.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So take a breath. Sense your arms and legs and just feel the desperation. Like, what's it like to just acknowledge, oh, there's desperation here.
It's like, where's the hope?
Hope for what?
Connection.
Oh, the longing for connection.
Yes.
Okay, so some part of you really wants to feel connection.
Yes.
Yes. As you feel this, does it feel like a teenager now? Do you feel like a teenager?
Part of me does, but part of me is this person who's had all these years, and I've continued to do art and writing. And I have no desire to publish in order to try to make myself seen and visible. I don't want to write for those reasons.
Okay. How's the teenager? As you
I
just
think
see her.
I think she's wondering how come you never figured this out.
Uh-huh. Okay. How do you feel towards her as you see her?
I feel a lot of compassion, and I wish for her to have help.
Right. So take a moment and just feel the compassion. What's that like?
Honey, you were trying the best way you knew how to
Uh-huh.
keep yourself alive by
Yeah.
playing the piano. It probably saved your life, actually.
Right. So there's compassion, there's understanding. Yeah. So there's your inquiry unfolding. So that'd be good to stay with, Meryl, to kind of feel the compassion and to see if that care that you just comes so naturally there, see if she can feel that, right? Kind of hang out with her and see if she feels your care and your compassion that's arising, right? And see how it affects her.
It's the first time someone understands her.
Yes, right, amazing. And that someone is you. It's you really seeing her and understanding her right here. Yeah, very tender. Yeah, very tender. Breath. Yeah.
She doesn't want to shine for my mother's sake. My mother forced that. She forced me away from my cousins.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, so your compassion is penetrating into touching this part of you. And as you recognize this part of you, your compassion is arising in response to it. So that's really beautiful. And I want to stay with that tenderness and gentle place within yourself. Yeah. Yeah. Is it okay to be with that?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
There's no other answer, is there?
Uh-huh. Ah. Seems like this is what's needed now. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just feeling that and breathe. Yeah.
Oh, I feel a tiny bit more relaxed, a tiny bit. Like I spoke my truth
Yes.
and was heard,
Uh-huh.
and that maybe there's hope in this new direction, that I don't have to remain angry at
Yes.
the culture. A part of me is very angry at this culture that my family transmitted
Right. Yeah. Makes
to
sense.
me.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So in a sense, you're beginning to then come to what we're talking about here, that you dived in, you saw this part, felt this wound, the compassion responds, and then you begin to think, okay, so I wonder, like, how does this affect things, right? So hold
Yeah.
it open. But I think most important thing for the meantime is just to stay close to this for yourself, close to this tender place, and feel the relief of not of having spoken your truth.
And also, I hopefully release some of this anger
Right.
without releasing the desire to speak my truth in the way I'm doing it now, which is a more gentle way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good, Meryl. Sounds good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us.
And I feel like, am I sharing too much in public? But I wanted to
Yeah, I
share.
appreciate that you did. It's a tender thing, and you know, so useful for you and useful for everyone. Everyone learns from that.
Oh.
The beauty of
It can help others.
yeah, sure. Definitely.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I saw some direct messages to me in the chat, which I don't know what they are. Oh, oh, they're just little. Oh, they're sweet. Okay, I saw them there. Okay.
Good. So we need to stop here now, and on that tender, sweet note, and we have a next meeting on the 19th of July, and I have an idea of what we'll be doing then, but we'll have to see if we get there. we have some plans, which hopefully we will be announcing next time. The website, all those details are in the chat there. And you can also find all of the past archive of the past Dive In with DOMs at the blog. Susan's listed that there. We'd love to hear from you if you have questions or things you want to share or topics you'd like to hear addressed. And please feel free to let other people know about this. You know, this forum is an open, free forum, and we want people to benefit from it. So feel free to invite anyone you know who's also interested in the practice. We'd love to see them here. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, I wish you very rich, heartful explorations. Okay, bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much and have a lovely evening.